Hello. Today is Friday, May 10th, I think. My name is Tracy, otherwise known as Healthy Happy Momsy, and I am here on this 10th day of Celiac Awareness Month. I'm streaming every day to share little factoids about celiac, about non-celiac gluten sensitivity, and some of the different areas that people have questions, that they can have issues. And if you find this helpful, please share this with somebody that you know that this could help. If you have questions, please post them in the comments below. If there's other topics that you would like for me to address that I haven't yet addressed, please post them below. I love hearing suggestions, and I will definitely always respond to the comments personally. And I just appreciate you guys tuning in. I appreciate you guys giving me the ability to be able to share my information with you and to help you guys out. So, who am I and how do I get to share this information with you? Where am I coming from? So, like I said, my name is Tracy, and I am a certified health and wellness coach. I'm also an entrepreneur. I am partnered with an amazing nutrition company that has absolutely changed my life, and that has given me the ability to be able to be a work-at-home mom. But prior to that, I was actually in pharmaceutical sales for 17 years, and I think that pharma is a great industry. It helps a lot of people, provides a lot of answers, but part of my journey was that about halfway through my career in pharmaceutical sales, I realized that as I was diagnosed with celiac disease and started learning about nutrition and learning more about lifestyle and things like that, I realized that for many people, a lot of the medicines that I had sold, while they were helpful for those patients, and I would never take that away from them, there are a lot of medicines that are being sold that, in all honesty, if people had a better understanding and knowledge of changes that they could make as far as their lifestyle, exercise, attitude, and nutrition, they would need a lot less medicine. And doctors once upon a time believed very strongly in this, but we have become a big drive-through society. And so it is my mission to help other moms, to help enable them to live their healthier lives, to be able to free moms from the strains of the corporate world, and to be able to allow them to have that decision, and to make that decision as to whether they would prefer to work at home or to prefer to be in the corporate world. If you guys want to be in the corporate world, I think that's amazing. But in order to feel like your best self, I've got an awesome option that is very helpful for many people, and I also coach people with one-on-one. So anyway, getting at it. Like I said, it is Celiac Awareness Month, day 10. Today's topic is cross-contamination. And what does cross-contamination have to do with anything? I've hit, in a lot of these topics, as you guys know if you've been tuning in, a lot of these topics are going to kind of blend in with some of the others and just kind of bleed over, because there is definitely some crossover, and there's a lot of things in common between them. So maybe you've been on a gluten-free plan for a while. And most of the time you do well, but every now and then you're like, why am I kind of having symptoms? Well, there's a couple of factors for why that could be. One is that you could be reacting to other foods. And so what I will say, as far as one of the best things, and I know that I have talked about this before, and since I actually am on my computer today, and I was trying to show this to you guys on a previous one, one of the apps that I find helpful, there we go, let's see. Right there, it's called My Symptoms. It's that little orange triangle with the exclamation on it. But My Symptoms is, I think it's like $2.99 to download it. And it's actually an app that I have my daughter use. And what you do is you can input your food, you can input your symptoms, you can rate them. And I'm going to, let's see, because I think I can actually pull this up, since when I tried to show this to you guys before, I was actually on my phone, so I couldn't pull it up. Okay, so here we go. Here's kind of a little screenshot. Let's see. So you can put your drinks, breakfast, lunch, dinner, snack, medication, supplements, your mood, symptoms, your bowel habits, which, okay, we're talking celiac here. That's important, whether it's too much or not enough. Your energy level, your sleep, your stress, your exercise, your environment, and other. So it is a great tool to put this information in. It'll analyze what you've got in there for overtime, 6 months, 3 month range. This organizer, so it gives you the different categories, and you can put your basic information in there. There's even a little quick start guide. But what this does is it actually helps you to look for what could be causing some of those issues. So that's where cross-contamination could come in, because you could be thinking that you're on a gluten-free diet, But there could be food items that maybe you're ingesting that you don't realize you've got gluten. So this is where it actually is important to look for a couple of things that I'm going to kind of share with you. One is, okay, it doesn't have gluten ingredients, but, is it safe? Okay, so could be yes, could be no. Depends on, if you're just doing this because you're kind of gluten intolerant and this is still a choice, you're fine. If you're tracking what's going on, if you're very in tune with your body, then you can probably figure some of those things out. For many people, though, there are a lot of things that we tend to not pay attention to, and then it's hard to really gauge, I don't know if it was this or if it was that. So I'm going to share with you guys some labeling information that can be super helpful for you. So I've got a box of bars here, okay? Oh, wow, that's kind of weird. I don't know why it actually was reacting like it's green. Okay. Anyway, so nutty caramel cashew bars. These are actually some awesome protein bars. Oh, and this might show up weird because of the green screen. Okay, so it shows up blue, but this right there, okay. Although it's very unclear on here, and I apologize because of the green screen lighting, but it says gluten-free, and so it's got the little circle with the X through it with the little picture, or it just says gluten on there. Sometimes it's a picture of wheat. So these are gluten-free. They meet the criteria for gluten-free. That means they're safe. Now, one of the things that totally threw me off when I started getting really stringent about this was that then I would flip the box around. And when it comes to allergens, things are supposed to be labeled if they contain the top 8 allergens, okay? So this one does. It says contains milk, tree nut, almond and cashew, and soy ingredients. Then it says manufactured in a facility that also processes tree nuts, eggs, and peanuts. And sometimes it will say, and wheat. And sorry, because I picked this up thinking that it did. I looked at it real quickly, totally looked at it wrong. Okay, it can actually say gluten-free on here, and it can also say manufactured in a facility that also processes wheat. How is that? Okay, there's 2 different things to look for in your label. One is it in a facility that processes wheat or gluten? The other is it processed on the same equipment as wheat or gluten, okay? If it is processed on the same equipment as wheat or gluten, it is not safe. Okay, because then you are going to deal with cross-contamination, which means you're going to most likely ingest enough gluten for you to either have symptoms or for your body to react, whether you feel it or not. It only takes 1/64 of a teaspoon of gluten ingestion to actually cause a reaction in a patient with celiac. So that's why cross-contamination is actually an issue. But if it's manufactured in the same facility as that also processes wheat or processes gluten, facilities can be as big as a football field, okay? So if you see in the same facility, but it still says gluten-free, you're good, okay? If you have a gluten allergy, a wheat allergy, you're in a whole different ball of wax. You might not be okay. For celiac, most likely you're going to be safe if it is in the same facility. If it is, sorry, apparently I forgot to turn my messenger off. But if it is on the same equipment, you are not safe. And this has to do with, as I'm updating some of my blog stuff, with where I'm sharing about different restaurants where it's been safe. You want the precautions when you go out to eat do they use different equipment? Do they use different servingware? Do they, like with pizza, do they use a different pizza cutter, a fresh, clean pizza cutter? Do they use a fresh, clean pan? Things like that. And I know for some people, like pizza is a huge hot button, so I probably should not have chosen that as my example. But I've noticed that as long as it's done in a separate area of the kitchen and it's clean, then I am fine. It's not cross-contaminated, okay? However, what you can run into, especially in households, is if you have some people who are gluten-free and some people who are not, because some people choose to not have the whole family go gluten-free at home. It all depends. In my house, for the most part, things are gluten-free. In my boyfriend's house, there are some things that he has, and so we know, we actually have them labeled separately, but things that could be used or cross-contaminated that you have to be aware of would be things like the double dip kind of effect. So you've got peanut butter. Somebody in the house has gluten-free bread, somebody in the house has bread with gluten. You have to have 2 separate jars of peanut butter and jelly, okay? The person who's gluten-free or the person who has gluten, one of them or both of them have to be labeled. If the person basically dips their knife in the peanut butter and then puts it on the bread with gluten and then goes and dips that knife into the jelly jar that is supposed to be gluten-free because they ran out, that jelly jar now belongs to the person with gluten. The person who has to eat gluten-free cannot eat out of that jelly jar because you take that knife, you're spreading it all around to get that peanut butter evenly on the bread. You've now got a cross-contamination issue. So take those same precautions. A couple of things to think about would be like if you've got, I don't know, like a jar of cheese dip or any kind of dip that you're using, some chips that are gluten-free and some chips that have gluten, that dip has to be labeled either for the gluten or the gluten-free. You don't get to go back and forth. The dip itself, of course, also has to be gluten-free. The peanut butter, the jelly, mayonnaise, because you're dipping your knife in the mayonnaise jar. Mustard and ketchup, unless you're wiping the tip on that, you should be okay. If you're a wiper, don't know how else to put it, but if you tend to, squeeze the ketchup out, squeeze the mustard out, and you want to clean that jar off by wiping on your bread, that's your dedicated gluten bread. Or your gluten ketchup, your gluten mustard, whatever. Don't be wiping it on your gluten bread and then putting it back in the kitchen for somebody else because it's not safe for them now. So, butter, cream cheese, all those kinds of things. If there's a chance of you taking a knife, taking a utensil and touching the gluten and then going back into whatever that condiment is, nope, you got to have separate, okay? I'm going to talk a little bit more about kitchen changeover tomorrow, but this is just kind of the basics of some of the cross-contamination. So double dipping, my symptoms that I talked about. The other reason that I'm telling you that is because, number one, if you think that you've been doing a really good job of reading labels, that can help you to find out that if there's something where there's some hidden gluten that you maybe overlooked. I did receive a huge list when I was first diagnosed, and I'm sitting here. I'm going to hop away for a second and bring this right back. And I'm still here. Sorry, guys. Okay. This is the fun of Go Live, right? Okay. So here's what I was going to share. When my daughter first went gluten-free, we got a list of foods to avoid. Here we go. And this has actually been updated, but sometimes gluten can be hidden in things that you have no clue, okay? Wheat, rye, barley, and then of course there's the whole controversy over oats. I'm going to try to simplify this. Cheerios are not gluten-free. They don't meet the consistency of evaluating for gluten-free. There are several other cereals like Lucky Charms, stuff like that. Don't do it, okay? Just don't. So anyway, most things like that will contain gluten. But here's I can just say wheat, rye, and barley. Let me just show you something. Here's the list in 2009 when my daughter initially went gluten-free that our healthcare provider gave us. That was 1, 2 pages. Because it can be disguised as far as the way that it looks. 3 pages, guys, of ingredients that might not look like gluten, but can be. Caramel is one of those things that can be kind of controversial. So that's part of why I showed you guys this box of the Nutty Caramel Cashew bars, because caramel was something that I had to learn to be careful and look and read between the lines and make sure if it has caramel, does it also say gluten-free? Because if it doesn't, it can actually have, I think it was barley. I don't even remember now. I just remember with caramel, that's one of those triggers for me to look extra. If it has malt would be like barley. And I remember growing up, like one of my favorite shakes was this Jamocha malted shake that I used to go get with my dad at a place called, I think it was called the Red Barn. Oh, I loved that flavor. I thought it was amazing. I can't have those anymore. No more Whoppers. No more whatchamacallits. I know, little things, but candy. I mean, I grew up on candy. I loved it. So anyway, you do have to watch for some of those ingredients because it could be blatant, but it also really and truly could be a cross-contamination issue. So look for, does it say gluten-free? And I'm going to kind of slightly on the same thing. I have to give you guys this warning. one of the things that I noticed early on, guys, I screwed up so bad when I first got diagnosed with celiac, because there was a lot of things that I just didn't know. My first couple of years, I screwed up all the time. When the first year, I was doing okay. And then a year into it was when my job relocated me to a town where I was so grateful because I had Earth Fare and Whole Foods, and I could actually go and buy all of these pre-made gluten-free items that I'd been trying to figure out how to substitute, and I couldn't substitute because I had a little girl, I wanted her to have the same version of everything that her friends at school could have that could eat gluten. And so if I could get it pre-made, because hey, I became a single mom at the same time, and her dad lives 3 hours away, and I was trying to figure out how to work, the pharma job and just balance it all. It was just so much. When I was trying to do all that, I was like, okay, anything I could find that was pre-made gluten-free that I could substitute, I completely used. And I couldn't figure out why my DH, my dermatitis herpetiformis, which is a sign of celiac, it kept flaring up. And I had no clue why. And it was because what happens is if you ingest too many of those items that are gluten-free, in order for them to be certified as gluten-free, the parts per molecule have to be under a certain threshold. However, if you're ingesting a bunch of things that have under the threshold, what happens if you have a bunch of something? You have an accumulation of it. Therefore, you then go over the threshold. So that's something to really be aware of. The more that you stick with naturally gluten-free ingredients, the better off you are. The more the substitutes, you do have to start watching it. And that's where the My Symptoms thing, that's where I bring that app in to give you guys as a heads up that you can use that. Because it'll look for some of those factors as far as when you have your symptoms and what your food is and see where that tie-in is. Because sometimes that's just really flipping hard to keep track of. We can't keep up with all that. Finally, okay, here's one of the topics that has come up lately. And I see it a lot. And people talk about the difficulties in being single and having celiac. Okay. People are like, okay, well, at least if you're already in a relationship, you're good. But here's something that can be an issue for some people. Kissing. Okay. I know, cross-contamination. If you're kissing somebody, they're having their gluten-containing meal, their gluten-containing beverages, beer, and then you're kissing a lot, you can actually have a reaction to that. So there is the recommendation that your partner who is ingesting gluten, that they do brush their teeth before you're smooching on them. Again, that's something to figure out what works best for you, but that truly is the guidance from most of the experts, is that the gluten ingester brushes his or her teeth. Okay, and as a courtesy, if they're going to brush their teeth, you should brush yours too, because, if they've got fresh breath, show them the same courtesy. So anyway, that's today's topic, cross-contamination, and kind of it fits into a few different categories there. So sorry about that. Like I said, I hope this is helpful for you. I also have, most of my blogs have been proofread, updated. So if you want to subscribe and hear about my reviews of restaurants, I do restaurant reviews locally. I am in Greensboro, so it's basically from Greensboro to Charlotte is what I consider local. Also traveling, currently there's more stuff with traveling within the U.S. There's a couple international. There will be more international coming. So keep up with that. And also part of prepping for that, guys, is something that I'm really hoping to make happen this summer. And that is that I am looking forward to doing a road trip across the country with my daughter and my sister. And the reason for doing this is because, well, it's a threefold reason actually. One is quality time with both of them, because I think sometimes it's just hard to reconnect with family. Of course, it's to not kill each other while we're in the vehicle, because, spending that much time with somebody can be tough. Nobody's easy to be with for an extended amount of time. So we were looking at a cap time of maybe like 10 to 12 days on that. But also, teaching my daughter about the country. What I've realized is that in North Carolina, at least, they don't do a whole lot of geography stuff. And until they get into middle school. And that to me was kind of shocking, because I'm like realizing my daughter doesn't know where a lot of things are. I'm like, oh my goodness. That's why I showed you guys that shower curtain with the world map that I'm so excited about. But also, for her to see the national treasures that within our country. I think that's really cool. And to become more aware of the different places across the country that offer gluten-free options. I can tell you that Gluten Dude, he's an amazing resource if you haven't checked out his page. Gluten Dude is actually working on a dedicated gluten-free restaurant listing to compile together. I think that's phenomenal. So if you have any to add to that, please go on his Facebook page and add. He is specific about what it is that he's looking for. It has to be dedicated gluten-free, not gluten-free available. But I would love to basically be able to help other people see that, just because you're diagnosed with celiac, that you don't have to feel so restricted, because initially it's very overwhelming when you find this out. So I will be writing about that on my eandmegfree.com, which is the website where I have that, and also have tips on there for newly diagnosed, for just general questions, tips, things like that. One of the things that I'm working on, if you guys want to help with this database, is I am looking for a database of the gluten-free freebies and the gluten-free discounts and coupons, especially for those that are newly diagnosed. I highly recommend going to any gluten-free, allergen-free expo that you have near you. But I would love to know about the options for people that aren't near those. What can they mail away for? I know Shar has something, but I haven't gotten a whole lot more feedback. So if you've got things to add to that, please, please, please send me the links, private message, comment, whatever. I want to share that. Anyway, sorry, I've gone on way too long today. I'm just so excited about these projects. So you can subscribe to eandmegfree.com if you want to get my updates on tips, on travel, on reviews, on restaurants, things like that. And tune in tomorrow, because tomorrow's topic is how do I change or start the gluten-free in-home? So we'll go through some of those topics tomorrow. I know I talked about some of the basics with cross-contamination. Tomorrow we're going to talk about some of the other things as far as what to change out and what you can keep. Okay? Have an amazing day. Thanks, guys. Oh, there's the mouse. Okay, thanks.